The BC general election has been called. British Columbians will go to the polls on October 19th to vote for a new government. That's only about 3 weeks. I want to recap a bunch of the highlights in wildlife management and hunting over the last 2 government terms. After the 2017 general election, the new NDP party that took power banned grizzly bear hunting. That was done to make the conservation of grizzly bears better. Since the hunting ban, the number of grizzly bear experts working for government have been reduced. Government-led grizzly bear population research has been eliminated. The numbers of grizzly bears being killed is increasing. Cars and trains are the #1 killer of grizzly bears, and the number of grizzly bear human conflict calls has been increasing. There is a class action lawsuit by a number of outfitters in the province seeking compensation for lost revenue due to the grizzly bear hunt ban. Dozens of First Nations in the province have been asking the government for years and years and years to reinstate the general grizzly bear hunting season, and they have not been listened to. British Columbia will not engage in predator management. The province has a policy that says it will not engage in predator management for the sole purpose of increasing big game populations for sustenance hunting. Anti-hunters have been buying guide outfitting territories on coastal British Columbia for the explicit purpose of stopping hunting, which is actually a violation of the Wildlife Act, yet no enforcement actions have ever been taken against the anti-hunting group that holds the outfitting licenses now. Now, there have been new hunting opportunities added for Roosevelt elk on the coast. Wildlife biologists used science and data to show that the recovering Roosevelt elk populations in some of the management zones could now support a hunt. There was a controversy about wolf trapping and wolf hunting that led to large petitions to government to ban wolf trapping and wolf hunting. But the minister at the time actually defended trapping and hunting, and no actions were taken. Hunters were able to bring in a number of new hunting regulations around the concept of fair chase. The regulations were initiated, developed, and supported by the hunting community. Outfitters have lost their guide outfitting territories due to land transfers to First Nations, and they have been denied financial compensation for those business losses. There have been significant losses of resident hunting opportunity around regulation changes and reductions for bighorn sheep, mountain goat, moose, and caribou. All of these regulation changes that reduce resident and outfitter hunting opportunity had no scientific rationale to support why those changes were made. Hunters have been forced out of areas that have been burned by forest fires, yet off-roaders and recreationalists and mushroom pickers are allowed into the forest fire areas. There are a number of Indigenous protected conservation area proposals. Some of them explicitly state that if the Indigenous protected conservation areas are approved, licensed hunters will be banned from those areas. Chronic wasting disease has shown up in the province, yet there's been no substantial increase in the wildlife health budget to deal with surveillance, research, or monitoring of chronic wasting disease on the landscape. The island of Haida Gwaii has been taken out of Crown public land and transferred to First Nations. There's been a strong emphasis over the last couple of years when it comes to hunting regulations and wildlife management on eliminating the number of licensed resident hunters and outfitter quotas under the auspices that wildlife management requires reducing hunter densities. Young wildlife biologists and senior wildlife scientists are leaving government. A wildlife research cooperative model with universities in the province, like they have down in the States, where universities do wildlife research to support decisions that wildlife managers made. There are people that spent over a year developing this model and framework for the province of BC, and there was no interest by the government to implement that in the province. So if you don't know what the heck to do come this election, I get it. It's a real dilemma in the province right now. Looking at the history of wildlife management and hunting over the last 8 years with one party versus two parties, which are essentially completely unknowns as far as how they might embrace science-based wildlife management or hunting. In BC and Canada in general provincial elections, we don't vote on ballot initiatives like how much funding for wildlife management, what the hunting regulations are going to be, or what amendments are going to be made to the Wildlife Management Act or the framework for wildlife management like predator control. We don't vote on those things. We vote for a party, then we have to work afterwards with the new government to try to get those things implemented. And that's where we're at. So get out and vote. Do the best you can with the best information that you have about who you think you should vote for. And then we've got to get to work after the election with the new government. One of the things that government has said is it doesn't see hunters as being a political force in this province enough to take seriously to make major changes in funding, changing the Wildlife Act, changing wildlife management, or protecting the future of hunting. So get out and vote and then work to change that. Like Charles Whitwam said in the previous video, become that juggernaut that we all know that hunters can be and drive political change.